Parashat EKEV. There's a very strange verse with a very strange form of a common word that requires explication. Kol ha-mitzvah asher anochi mitzavcha hayom tishmerun la'asot. Deuteronomy chapter 8. The complete mitzvah, or the whole mitzvah, commandment, singular, which I command you this day, shall you observe to do, in order that you may live and multiply and come and inherit the land which was sworn to your fathers. What do you mean, the mitzvah, the whole mitzvah? There are 613 commandments, mitzvot. What is the pasuk? What does the verse mean? The usual interpretation is that our mitzvot are actually one great mitzvah. That it's a whole package of life. And that it's important to keep all of the commandments and to buy into the entire system. Because all of the commandments are interrelated. No one knows which is more important and which is less important. But the entire life structure gives blessing and goodness. And Chaim Nachman Bialik, one of the great, great poets and thinkers of early Zionist history, he had been very religious in the yeshiva, and then he left religion, and then he returned to religion later in life. And he has a fascinating essay in which he says that there are so many different rules and regulations concerning the Sabbath. And if one studies the tractate Sabbath, there's very little poetic material, very few stories, homilies. It seems to be all legalese. But the sum total of all of this legalese is the creation of a day which is pure poetry, a day which is pure song. And that's the point. Everything is interrelated. And when you keep the Sabbath day the way you're supposed to, then you understand the inner beauty. But this particular idea would lead one to say that Judaism is an all-or-nothing proposition. Either keep everything or nothing at all. And many Jews felt that way, especially the early immigrants to America. When they had to work on the Sabbath, and they really did have to work on the Sabbath if they wanted to bring home some kind of livable wage, then they decided they wouldn't keep anything at all. The statement was, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Let me first say clearly, a hypocrite is not someone who doesn't keep everything. Someone who says he keeps everything and doesn't keep everything, that's a hypocrite. But if someone sometimes falters, or chooses a bit, and rejects a bit, perhaps he's being inconsistent, but he's not being a hypocrite. And the only truly consistent person is a dead person, said Matthew Arnold. If we live, part of life means being a bit inconsistent. I prefer to look at it a little bit differently. I once had a very close friend who was in the hospital as a young boy. And I went to visit him. We were both young teenagers. And it was during Sukkot, and I visited him during the intermediary days. And he told me of what a wonderful experience he had when someone from Chabad came with the 4 species and he was able to make the blessing. However, he said the person in the bed next to him ate on Yom Kippur, didn't seem to care about Judaism at all. And the Chabadnik gave him the 4 species as well. And he told me he couldn't understand. What was the good of giving someone who doesn't even keep Yom Kippur the 4 species? But the Chabadnik explained. The commandments are 613, and our sages tell us they correspond to the limbs and the organs of the human body. 365 limbs, 248 organs. If a person doesn't have the use of one hand, does that justify taking away the use of another? If a person cannot see from an eye, does that mean that one can deafen his ear? Each mitzvah is of ultimate importance. And even if you keep only one commandment, that is extremely critical and important. And therefore, the verse is very interesting. Kol ha-mitzvah, every and any mitzvah, which I command you to do today, shall you observe to do. Even if it's only one. That one can very often lead to another. If not in your life, but in the lives of your children. Shabbat Shalom.